So the first topic that we're going to discuss today is something that we take for granted, and that's communications. We as human beings communicate all the time. Now, what exactly is communication? Okay, what we're doing right now is we are communicating. It involves speaking, it involves listening, it involves seeing, it involves feeling. There's all sorts of stuff that go into human communication. Okay, these are normal processes amongst normal people. When people fail to communicate properly, there's all sorts of stuff that begins to fall apart. Miscommunication is the leading cause of problems. Okay, I can tell you that it happens all the time. So most important to understand the general concept of what communication is. I'm going to tell you what it is a few times, then we're going to write it down. So I want you to sort of, in a relaxed way, just hear me out, absorb the information as I tell it to you, and then I'll put it on the board, and then you'll write it down. So first and foremost, remember, communication is a process. Now, what do I tell you about the word process? What is a process? Well, how do we translate process?
Work.
Anyone?
Step by step, sequential.
Sequential.
Excellent. So process means work, right? And work is always sequential. So there is a sequence. If you violate that sequence, communication fails to occur. When two people are talking and they're talking over each other, there is no communication. The process is broken. It doesn't work. Okay? When one person is speaking and the other person is listening, now that is a communication, but there's more to it. It's not just you're speaking and the other person is just sitting there quietly. Listening is not a passive process. It's also active because it involves interpreting the information and understanding it and then formulating a response which indicates your understanding or need for further clarification. Correct? So, first thing to understand that communication is a process with everything that goes along with our understanding of the word process. Process is work. Process is sequential. It is step by step. In very basic terms, step one, thinking about what you're going to say, then saying it. Step two, listening and understanding. Okay? And that's just the basic understanding of the steps here. So, it's a process. Process of what? It is a process of transmitting, receiving, and understanding information. Let me say it again. It is a process. Communication is a process of transmitting. What I'm doing right now, I'm transmitting. And what you're doing right now is receiving. And you're also understanding. So it is a process of transmitting, receiving, and understanding information. Let's write that down. It is a process of transmitting, receiving, and understanding. It is a process of transmitting, receiving, and understanding information. Let's get this in first. Go ahead and write that down. Process of transmitting, receiving, and understanding information. Process of transmitting, receiving, and understanding information. let's get back and understand, because we're not done yet with this definition. Process of transmitting, receiving, and understanding. You see, all of these pieces are essential. Now, who is doing this? And we're talking about people, okay? People. So it's to and from people. To and from people. I know it's kind of redundant to say that, but you know, you cannot communicate with a telephone pole. I mean, many people have tried, okay? But you can't communicate with a telephone pole. So it has to be between people. Now, how do we do that? We do that by speaking, and we also do it by non-speaking. Because not saying something is also saying something. Do you understand what I just said?
Yeah.
Yes, no, maybe? Now, notice, folks, I usually ask you to repeat back to me or express your understanding of what I just said. I mean, that too is a step in communication. Otherwise, I wouldn't be communicating. I would just be speaking. Okay? If I speak to no
It
one,
takes me a minute to unmute my mic and then
that's okay. That's all right. That's okay. I just need to make sure that we understand what we're talking about here. But not saying something is definitely saying something. When I ask my wife a question and she's not saying anything, I know she's telling me something. All right? So
you should be scared at that point.
yeah. I used to be very scared. Now I have resigned to my fate, and I just take out a blindfold and a cigarette. And I'm ready to meet my maker. So, but I think at this point in time, I think we have cleared out all of the landmines we had in our relationship up until this point. I stepped on all of them, I'd like to say, and I have the scars to prove it, more than once for every particular landmine. And so I'm well skilled in, like I told you, if there were stupid things that they were done and said, they were done and said by me. Luckily, I'm still here to talk to you about all this. And so we're still talking about communication, which is a process of transmitting, receiving, understanding of information, right? To and from people. Oh, I forgot to, sorry, I forgot to put the word information. 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 Okay? To and from people using what we call verbal and non-verbal communication.
Family, it's working.
Verbal and non-verbal communication. And what's...
Sorry I'm late, Steve.
Huh?
Sorry I'm late.
That's okay, that's okay. Don't worry, make sure to catch this beginning portion on the video. So, nonverbal communication. The question is, what is an example of nonverbal communication? And one of the things that are most important for people to understand for the exam, when they talk about nonverbal communication, the first thing that comes up is something called body language. There are specialists out there who specialize on interpreting body language. A lot of them are highly paid professionals, and they work and they sit in the courtrooms, and big powerful law firms hire them to watch the body language of the jury or other people and report on their findings in real time to the lawyers so they can make adjustments to their presentation. How many people knew that? Has anyone ever heard of that?
Yes.
There are people who read body language. Yeah, there are people who read facial expressions. And in these high
So
power
what
cases,
they say, it's sign language or body language?
body language. Body language and facial expressions. Never mind sign language. Sign language is a real language. Body language can also be used as, somebody's sitting there with their arms crossed like this, or somebody's out there sitting like this, or somebody's there sitting like this. There are people who make it their career to read, various contortions of the human body. It's a science. It's almost a science. And they're very heavily relied upon by various professionals. Certainly in, people who are skilled in negotiations themselves, people who negotiate, I don't know, hopefully there's going to be an end to the war out in Europe at some point in time. There are people who are diplomats who understand body language. They are very keen on understanding it, okay? And sometimes they also have other professionals who are looking out for them. But all of this goes into the understanding of the first word that you need to understand, and that is the word communication. Okay? You need to understand that oftentimes we don't just speak. More times we do not speak, but we still communicate. Okay? And that is something that's very important. Not saying something is always saying something. Not doing something is also doing something. Not just doing, it's also saying. Okay? Make sense?
Copy.
Excellent. Very good. Let's discuss the next topic. And the next topic here will be human relations.